So this is the 50th anniversary, of course, of the Summit Series. We marked the official day a couple of weeks ago. And then I got a note from Terry Mosher, Aislinn, over at the Gazette on a book signing going on this weekend. And I wanted to talk to Terry for a couple of reasons. A, because the book is just really, really cool. And B, because, Terry, this wasn't the book launch. This was just a signing. I saw you Saturday morning at this independent bookstore at Clio out in the Pointe Claire Plaza. And be honest, did you think you would get the kind of turnout you got?
Well, we knew it was going to be big, but we had no idea it was going to be big as that. And thanks to CJAD in a way, because Saturday morning I did an interview, and so many people at the event. You were hanging around for a while. So many people at the event said, "We heard about it this morning on CJAD, so we dropped right over." So radio still has punch, you know.
Well, that's good to know. Okay, so I guess I'll finish the show then. Let me ask you this. And by the way, you're kind of underselling it a bit, because I understand at one point you were worried you might not have enough books, in fact, to go around for everyone who showed up.
We actually sold out of books there, and I had to go and get 2 more cases and round them up. And it ended at 2 o'clock. We sold the last book, not only that book, but another book on COVID that I'd done. So we were signing for over 4 straight hours. It was quite something.
That's amazing.
I think it touches a nerve, though, with people. I mean, a pleasant nerve. The business of Yvan Cornway was there with me, of course, and he was signing the books because he wrote a tremendous introduction. Very nice from a player's point of view on the series. And, you know, we all know what an idol Yvan is amongst so many people here in Montreal. And he's such a gentleman.
Boy, that he is, and there were a lot of people very excited to see him, I remember as well. Terry, first of all, let's talk about the book itself. You have cartoons and anecdotes that pretty much detail the entire series. You remember at the beginning when this was set up, was it set to be the huge event that it turned out to be? Because we thought we were just going to win in a cakewalk, didn't we?
Well, it was exciting, especially for those of us who loved hockey, and it was coming, and it was kind of there was an oddness about it because Canada had not participated in international hockey for years up until that point. We presumed we were going to win. Everybody presumed we were going to win, even the real experts. And lo and behold, on that Saturday in Montreal, the Canadian team lost an embarrassing 7-3, and that caught a lot of interest, I think. Suddenly there was mounted interest in, like, how is this happening? How are these amateur Russians beating our best of the NHL? And it just escalated from there. And I know even when I went to Moscow, when I flew, if you remember, there were 4 games, then a 2-week break, and then another 4 games in Moscow. Even flying there, and at that point we were pretty sure we had lost the whole thing. I didn't have the sense that it was going to be so huge as it was. So we were the media and the 3,000 fans were isolated pretty much in Moscow, and had no idea how the excitement was building at home, especially when the Canadian team began to win games in Game 6, and of course they won the remaining 3 games to just take the series by the skin of the hockey tape on their blade. I mean, it was amazing.
So people are wondering, as far as the book goes, so you have basically from the beginning all the way through to the end, a variety of cartoons in here and quotes as well. Did you have a sense that this could turn out to be a book?
Back then, no, Aaron, I was 29 years old, for God's sake. I had just published my first book, I think. Back then, you know, it sold 1,000 copies or something, but I had no idea what was going to happen down the road and how it would escalate over the years. You know, there was the 10th anniversary, then the 30th anniversary, and now the 50th anniversary. So I decided to put it together last year. I'll tell you, I'm going to tell you something that I haven't really mentioned much before. I wanted the Montreal point of view to be out there because I saw all of these Torontonians planning to produce books. And I knew what would happen, what always happens. You know, Montreal would get a casual mention, but be shuttled aside. Even though we had 7 players on that team from the Habs, and all of them very classy and performed well. So I wanted, and also the sports writers. The sports writers in Toronto tend to dominate things, and I read all of the reports from Moscow, and absolutely the best reporter, honest reporter from it was Ted Blackman of the Montreal Gazette. And so I wanted that remembered. So I quoted a lot from Ted. Excuse me. In the book, I quote a lot of quotes from Ted and Red Fisher and a number of other Montrealers. So it's very much a Montreal point of view.
So Dave Stubbs, who's a hockey historian who used to be, of course, a writer with the Gazette. Dave, you were there on the weekend as well. People came up to you, I guess, and talked about some of the things that you remember from that series. So you have a bit of a different perspective than Terry does. You mentioned to me about this incident, which I guess nobody picked up on, right? At the end of the last game, after the Henderson goal and what Pete Mahovlich has done. You want to tell that story?
Yeah, I've seen this goal, Aaron, from so many different angles. I mean, I've seen it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Well, only as I was doing some work, I spent just pretty much the entire month of September going back and chatting with some of the stars of this Summit Series. I decided to have a closer look at that last goal, and I found some footage as the Canadians are celebrating. Harry Sinden and John Ferguson, the coach and assistant coach of Team Canada, Alan Eagleson, who was in with the Players Association, who helped kind of orchestrate the series. They're all out there in suits running around the ice. There's this giant mob of Canadian players right beside Vladislav Tretiak. And in the middle of all of it, and it's no more than about 3 seconds, Pete Mahovlich turns, and twice with his stick he taps the pads of Vladislav Tretiak and then turns back to the Canadian team. Well, I got a hold of Pete and said, do you remember this happening? And he said 50 years later, he said, I'm amazed that anyone even picked up on it. But he said, absolutely. He said, we were cast as pawns of system against system. We were hockey players on both sides of this. And what we wanted to do is go out and play hockey the best we could. We wanted to win for our team. Our country, yes, but we wanted to win for our team, we wanted to win for ourselves, and we wanted to win for each other. And he said, I knew that Tretiak at that point was absolutely devastated, but this guy had literally served us, borscht on Russian rye bread in Montreal, right? That 7-3 game, we woke up the next morning just hungover. We were stunned. And he said, this guy just gave us everything that we could possibly have handled and more. And he said, so all I wanted to do is tap him on the pads and tell him, hey, job well done. We know that you're a professional goaltender in the sense that, you play for a living, and you've done a tremendous job. So, this is one goal, but hey, thank you for everything that you've done, and you were tremendous out there.
And it took 50 years to figure that out, to find that out, Dave, so congratulations on that. There's also a mention of Yvan Cournoyer, I think, talking about the fact, and we talked about this on the weekend, he said he felt more pressure. Here's a guy who's won how many Stanley Cups? 7?
10.
10? Yeah. And said he felt more pressure playing for that team than he did ever playing for the Canadians and fighting for a Stanley Cup, which I found remarkable.
Yeah, Yvan has told me many times that he cannot remember really any specifically of the 10 Stanley Cups that he has won, but he remembers one that he lost, and that was 1967 when the Canadians were heavily, heavily favored to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, of course, the Leafs, these fossils, these are a bunch of old guys on the Maple Leafs, just put together this tremendous playoff run, and they knocked off the Habs. They stunned the team, and that scarred Yvan. He said, I never wanted to lose again. So he said that that Summit Series goal, and I've joked with him many times. I said the most famous picture of you is of the back of your sweater and your backside, because you don't see Yvan's face in that picture. I said that, and the fact that you lost the Stanley Cup to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Those are the two things that really Yvan says have defined his hockey life. So it's an incredible thing all these years later, and the number of people who were coming up to Yvan. There was one woman who came up, and she was absolutely, Terry, you remember this, she was absolutely in tears. She had watched the Summit Series with her husband, and I guess they watched Game 8. They celebrated after Game 8, and very shortly thereafter, he passed away. And so she came and met Yvan, and she was absolutely in tears because she said to him, the memories of that game were so special to me and to my husband, and I lost him shortly after that. And we all just stood there just kind of dumbfounded by the emotion that this woman had. So you understand, how deeply this series moved so many Canadians. And we're still talking about it 50 years later. Yeah. And the beauty of this series, the fact the Russians played as well as they did, if Canada had swept the Russians off the face of the earth like everyone thought we were going to, we wouldn't be talking about this 50 years later, and Terry wouldn't have a book.
That's probably true. Hey, Terry, we have to wrap it up. I will ask one other thing, because you talked about Yvan Cournoyer. You also revealed that on the cover of this new book, the Canadian beaver there, that's in fact supposed to be Yvan Cournoyer.
But it's based on Yvan Cournoyer, the small, determined, steely-eyed beaver, exactly. Yeah.
But you two have actually become good friends, and when you talk about a gentleman, what an ambassador this man has become for hockey here for the Montreal Canadiens.
Do I have time to tell one moving anecdote that sums up? It was in the 90s, and Ivan, of course, had taken part in different festivities here in Russia and so on. His phone rang, and it was Trechek on the phone, who was in Montreal, and could he come out and see him? And, Ivan was very moved. He said, yeah, come on out. And he came out, and they had lunch. And then he had to do some business downstairs. And then he came back up, and there was Trechek swimming in Ivan Cornway's swimming pool. Now, that was one of the most moving moments for Ivan, and it was sort of the business, too, of we don't hate each other anymore. So I love that anecdote.
Wonderful man. And looks, by the way, I don't say he looks like he could play today. He's in incredible shape. How old is Ivan Cornway, Terry? Do you
He's
know?
a year younger than me. He's 78.
He looks incredible.
Yep.
Wow. All right. Listen, the book, which you can still buy, right? That's the good news?
For a while, I don't know that I'm going to do a second printing. I think I want to make it a collector's item.
Okay,
in other words,
fair
if you
enough.
have a copy of that book, it will be a special book. And so I'll keep it to one printing, I think.
All right. But if you went online now, or if you went to a local bookstore, could you find it? Are there still copies around as far as you know?
Yes, and in the
Okay.
key bookstores in Montreal, they have them, a few stores in Ottawa and a few stores in Toronto.
Okay.
And you can go online to my website and figure out how to get the book, www.aislinn.com.
Okay.
But I'd prefer that you support a local bookstore.
Absolutely.
Actually get out of the house and go to a bookstore and buy the book.
That was a nice touch over the weekend. That little bookstore with people flooding
It's
in
a
there all
wonderful
day long.
store.
It was great.
Yeah.
Terry, thank you so much. Dave, thank you. Appreciate
Pleasure,
you
Aaron.
both. So there
Thanks
you go.
very much, Aaron.
You bet. Looking back on the 1972 Summit Series between Canada and Russia. It's a wonderful little book.